Hello, folks, and welcome back to Braai Brus. It's been a little while, I think a month since we did this last time. It's Byron and myself here, Chris. He's in somewhere in an undisclosed location under the brick and steel of a building somewhere located in the Northern Cape. No, not really. Somewhere in Eastern Cape. And I am in Pennsylvania, the epicenter of the 2024 presidential elections. Everybody loves PA. Everybody's been here. I think we've seen Kamala Harris more times in Pennsylvania than she's been seen in California in her lifetime. Hey, Byron, what's the word, man? How's it going in South Africa?
Oh, another day in paradise, mate. What can I say? At least we still got the lights on. Check us out, man. Check lights. Yeah,
I see that.
We just invented this thing.
Magical
called electricity.
Magical electricity. It's pretty cool. What we used to do is put hamsters and gerbils on this little wheel, and they would spin. That's how we generate our electricity. Just saying.
Well, I've heard you Americans are a little bit redneck, eh? But what can I say? But like we've still got power. We did some investigations and we found where it came from, and lo and behold, we still have some.
Oh my goodness! Hey, look, I noticed that Fikile Mbalula was a little upset about the Government of National Unity. He said that he doesn't like being
Monday's video.
He doesn't like being woken up at all odd hours by the other members of the Government of National Unity. I was kind of my response like, isn't that your job?
No, so poor Fikile, as we discussed the other day, don't say anything wrong about Fikile. Fikile is my boy. But Fikile says he's not enjoying the Government of National Unity because Helen keeps talking badly about him. So he says that he's got real problems with them because he wakes up every morning to her basically slagging off the ANC and telling them how rubbish they are. He's like, yes. Then he gets journos calling him all day and saying, what do you think of this Helen Zille's comments? Because they all want something that's clickbaity. It's just like, dude, leave me alone. I want to go for my massage now. So yeah, he's not a fan.
I see that. Hey, can you adjust your camera slightly down? We're catching your chin there. I don't know if you can.
My chin's lovely. What's wrong with my chin?
No, but we didn't have all of your chin. That was the question. There you go. It's a little bit better. Anyway, yeah, no, poor Fikile. What a tough job he's got there as ANC Secretary General, expected to, answer the phone, help make decisions, respond to problems. But I'll tell you what, they thought John Steenhuisen was going to be the problem, but Helen Zille is becoming the thorn in the side of the GNU. Every time she opens her mouth, it's entertaining. I wish she would finally come on my program, which she promised to do 4 years ago, but I'm sure she's long since forgotten about me.
Yeah, but I don't know if you really want to get Helen on your stream. She, I get on very well with Helen, so... The less I say, the better.
Nothing wrong with that. No, I'm just saying that she did offer to come to the program unsolicited. I didn't ask her.
Can I just interrupt for 2 seconds and say, hey, Ronaldo, nice for you to join Braai Brus, but we don't need losers here, bud. No losers here.
Hey, we could let a former member of Parliament in for a couple of minutes if you want. I mean, that's the least we can do. The poor guy stands on the street corner with a tin cup. He needs some help.
And that was before he left. He left Parliament.
True story. That.
You know what? If Ronaldo wants to join us and have a three-way, let's go for it. That might actually be fun. We can get the Pod Bros back together, except with new Pod Bros, new and approved. No German and Ramon.
Yeah, no German Ramon. But that's fine. Ronaldo can join us, but I'd prefer we not call it a three-way. I'm just saying.
Anybody who's been an MP, please raise your hand. Well, I was nearly an MP, but then they told me I was too South African for the job. So
listen, Dalian Pofu said he's a member of the ANC, MK, and the EFF. He can identify any way he wants. He doesn't have to be part of it. So I'm a member of the South African Parliament. I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly. He says he's not at home right now, so he can't. Yeah, that's what they all say. Which street corner you at, bud? We'll send people there for.
He's wussing out on us. He's not at home, dude. Mobile phones work. I don't know if you heard about that. Why does that menu?
He doesn't have a mobile phone. He can't afford it anymore. He's not a parliamentary MP.
Doesn't
No
have
parliamentary MP perks.
no government or party provided mobile. So he's back to a Nokia. Is that what it is?
Nokia. A Nokia.
Ronaldo has a flip phone. He has a flip phone he picked up at a spaza shop.
He says he's got a Nokia 3310.
See, there you go. I told you, man. There it is. That's those little tiny ones.
Guys, come on, man. Like, everybody flock to Ronaldo's stream and give him like a super chat. He does stripping for super chats and all sorts of stuff. And now we know why. He can only afford a Nokia 3310.
Well, the problem now isn't the Nokia, it's airtime. He needs airtime. That's why he can't come on the program. So I'll tell you what, Ronaldo would do this if I was on Wednesdays with Colonel. He would say, hey, go ahead and super chat Chris's channel so that Chris can't give me the money for the airtime. Anyway. But welcome, Ronaldo. I noticed that Germ's not here. We don't see Germ very often. He only appears in Ronaldo's
Germ avoids PooTube. I don't know if you know the story. So Germ actually had a channel on PooTube.
Oh, no, I know very well. I've been involved with Germ for years. Yep.
Then they deleted his channel, and then he set up a new channel, and it got deleted. And then he set up a test channel, and it lasted 24 hours, and they deleted it. Yeah, so right. he's like, I might not be welcome on YouTube. And you're like, hey, you figure, buddy. You figure.
I think that Germ was in competition with Scott Balson to see how many channels could be canceled in the quickest order.
So, do you know what actually happened to Scott Balson, out of curiosity?
Are you asking, or because I believe I know, or do you know something I don't know?
I don't know. Let's find out. Do you know?
Tell me what you know, and I'll tell you what I know.
How about let's make this exciting? People in the chat, all 47 of you, who knows what happened to Scott Balson? We're gonna run this on an interactive chat for 5 minutes, and then we'll tell you. But who knows? But whilst we wait, what phone are you rocking, Chris?
Oh, I carry a Samsung S21 Ultra, which was the newest phone when it came out 4 years ago. I haven't changed it because it's so
what?
Good. A Samsung S21.
A Samsung?
No,
What's a Samsung?
Samsung S21.
Is that the company that copied, the proper phones? I recall they worked in the same factory and they stole the design of this company. I think they called an iPhone, where what the rest of us have.
Samsung did not copy. They used the Android operating system, which Google bought. And actually, the one thing that Google actually improved, everything else they screwed up. But Android is an excellent operating system, and Samsung makes the best mobile phones on the planet since Nokia's gone to shit.
The one thing that I really miss, the actual phone that I really, really miss.
Hey, Bernard.
Blackberries.
I hated Blackberries because they were such an arrogant status symbol for such a long time. But then I was forced to have a Blackberry when I worked in an embassy. And while it didn't work ideally, I got accustomed to it. And next thing you know, I was buying Blackberries and using them. And I really like BBM Messenger. That was great. BlackBerry Messenger, that was an incredible app. And sorry to see it go. It stayed for a little bit after the phones went away, but then eventually went away. And now everybody's on WhatsApp, which, of course, belongs to Zuckerberg. But no, I miss BlackBerry. BlackBerry was a fantastic tool. Research in Motion was a Canadian company. But like Nokia, they meteoric rise and a meteoric fall.
Yeah, very much so. So just while we're waiting, so we asked if anybody in the comment section, we now got 54 people, but if anybody wanted to interact and tell us if they know what happened to Scott Balson. So for those of you who don't know, Scott Balson was the South African who moved to Australia. He then set up a channel called Loving Life, and on Loving Life, he basically made comments about South African politics, said lots of trust me, bro. Learned lots of secret stuff about South African politics through the law of trust me, bro. And I know exactly what's going to happen in South Africa. Trust me, bro. And none of it ever happened. So, but he was always like how terrible South Africa is, and South African YouTubers are the scum of the earth, and so forth and so forth. And one day he removed himself off YouTube and set up his own website. And yes, we were asking if anybody knows what happened to Scott Balson, Loving Life. No, I do actually know what happened to it. But anyway, so before we tell you all, a little bit of suspense. Come on, guys. Engage with us.
I've got
Tell
a
us
little
if you know.
Got a little bit of factual correction there. Scott Balson is not a South African. He's a Tanganyikan whose parents shipped him off to school, boarding school in South Africa, where he graduated from high school. He's not a South African. He's a Tanganyikan. So that's the first thing. There's a lot more going on there with Scott Balson. Jonathan says he's a good guy. He's not a good guy. He's a piece of shit, a scumbag, a horrible person who has got a mouth that he can't back up.
Never met him. Couldn't possibly
I don't
say.
have to meet him, but his slander and his libel against me is well documented. So, and I don't know what his problem is. I had never said anything bad about him until he attacked me mercilessly. His penis envy. If he wants to whip it out and see who's got a bigger one, maybe we can do that one day. But that's not really my game. So, anyway, I have not said anything about him in a long time. I was just mentioning, in passing that he disappeared, like Germ, same sort of thing. He moved to South Africa.
So Ronaldo says he finally moved to South Africa to report on things, but decided not to because he was too scared. That's not what happened. But we all know how much Ronaldo loves Scott Balson. Him and Scott go way back when. They're best of friends.
Yeah, and that's what got me all into it. But what really torched the guy was that Fiona, who is wheelchair bound, lives in the UK, a South African, who is living in the UK and has a caregiver, had been recording her autobiography and placing it on his program. And then for some reason, he got bent out of shape because Fiona had visited Ronaldo's broadcast one day. She chatted, and Scott's spies, who don't chat, but spy on this channel and spy on Ronaldo's channel, ran back to Scott and said, Fiona was on Ronaldo's channel, and then she was on Chris's channel. And so he removed all of her 78 videos that she'd recorded off of his channel in a spiteful move. Unfortunately for Mr. Balson, he talked about how he was all independent, doing things all on his own, but it's all bullshit. He had a server that was being funded and paid for by a South African, Rudy Geldenhuis, if I recall correctly. He was paying for it because he wanted to fund alternative media. And when he did that, Fiona, the domain was owned by Rudy, so he shut it down. So then he made all these videos about how the CIA and everyone's coming after him and they've sabotaged him and all this other BS, when in fact it was his own actions that led to it because he treated people so poorly. Prior to that, he mistreated Hendo, who came to my channel. He mistreated Erica, abused her. She came to my channel. And a number of people that watch this channel are refugees from his loving life. Look, I didn't have anything against the guy. Ronaldo interviewed me on a main interview after people discovered who I was, but after calling into his show. And then he reached out to me. Scott Balson said, would you come on my show? And Ronaldo had warned me he would do that. And I said, well, I have no problem. I'll go on his program. So I went on his program, and it was quite a good discussion. You know, I answered his questions. He answered my questions. I was very forthcoming and forthright, and he agreed to come on my program. He did. We talked, and that's where I learned about he's the guy that wrote a book that I purchased many years ago. I forgot who the author was, about the colored community in South Africa. Anyway, so good conversations. But then when he decided to screw me over and start slandering me in August 2022 when I went to South Africa, that's when I had enough. And I went off on him, and I ignored this guy for a long time until last year when he made a video. Okay? And this is what the video was. I don't know if you ever saw it. We have the information. Finally, we've exposed the so-called colonel is actually a CIA operative. I'm like, oh my God, this guy, I don't know what urine he's drinking, but it clearly is affecting his judgment. And so, that's where it all started because I had the audacity to respond to my viewers who asked me to interview Fiona. I was in the UK. Fiona agreed to meet with me. She wanted to be interviewed. It was a lovely conversation. We had a lovely day outside of a Costa coffee shop up in the Midlands. And it was just nice, a little chilly, but we had a good conversation. And then that's when he started releasing these videos accusing me of being a CIA agent because it pissed him off. He's a spiteful, evil, small-minded person, and it's unfortunate. But, a few years ago, he had discussed on his channel, because I watched his channel. He put on there that he had macular degeneration, which is a horrible condition to have, and you lose your eyesight. And he said his doctor said, stop doing the videos, stop squinting, or you're going to go blind.
Yeah, but I never bought that, man, because he was like, oh, I have to stop doing this because I can't see and something's like that. And then he's like, but I set a private server and I'm going to be doing more videos. Like, dude, if you're coming off YouTube because of your eyes, you don't do more videos. You do less videos.
Well, what actually happened is that at the time, I forget how many subscribers I had. I think I must have had like 12,000 or something like that. And he had 100,000. And I made the video, and in the video I said, Scott Balson has announced he has macular degeneration. That's a horrific thing. Thoughts and prayers to Scott. Hopefully it doesn't get worse and he can maintain his eyesight. And I said at the time, I said, Scott Balson has brought to light many issues in South Africa that people weren't covering on YouTube early on. And for that, I think people should thank him for bringing attention and awareness, particularly farm attacks in South Africa. I said, however, he's chosen to attack other South African YouTubers like Ronaldo and Roman and even me. And I said, that's unfortunate. There's no need to do that, because he did that in his state. He didn't name me, but he mentioned Ronaldo and Roman.
He didn't like the competition.
Right. So he attacked them. I said, that's unfortunate. There's no need for that. It's gratuitous. So he contacted me shortly after that video. I recorded that in my car at the War College a couple years ago when I was doing consulting outside at lunchtime. He contacted me. He said, Chris, would you take down that video? I said, why? He said, because it's hurting my channel. I said, how's it hurting your channel? You have 100,000 subscribers. I have like 12,000 and 15,000 people view my video. It's not like anybody's actually paying attention to my channel. And he said, so I said, I'm not going to take the video down because I didn't say anything was dishonest and I didn't attack you personally. I just said what you did was unfortunate. I will, however, change the title. So I changed the title. Anyway, the guy is, he's paranoid. So Keith Alderson says Scott's attitude was a loss for himself, but also for Keith. He did have some useful information from folks on his channel, and his troubled history gave him useful insights. Paranoia. Yeah, he's very paranoid. Very paranoid.
So I'm going to correct everybody. I'm going to change one word, and let's say was.
Was what?
He was all of that stuff. He's now with Jesus.
Oh, he's passed away?
Yeah. That was the news.
I was unaware of that. When did that happen?
So, interestingly enough, we actually Ramon and I went on this little thing because we were like, whatever happened to Scott Balson? We went on a big, long thing to try to figure out where it happened. And so he lost his channel. And then he went on a website, and the website got delisted. And he maintained, it's very interesting, your story, by the way, because I didn't know that story about the lady whose autobiography had in there. But he basically said it was becoming too difficult to continue doing the channel because it was too expensive to host the website.
Yeah, because he had to pay for it because of what he did to Rudy. Rudy was paying for all of it, $800 a month US.
And then, we found out a short while after that he had passed away. But I mean, it wasn't exactly what I'd call a small car. It was rather big. So you can imagine the reasons. But still, as Ronaldo says, rest in peace, never liked him. But death is where feuds end. That's correct, Ronaldo. So you can take that one off your chest, buddy.
Yeah, no, Ronaldo says, I'll never forget how he got him with the Pepe Puth story. Yeah, no, that's why he hated Ronaldo so much. Susan Coster's here. Hey, Susan, in Bloemfontein. Thanks for being here. Okay. So I didn't know he passed away. That's news. And with that, then that ends the conversation from my perspective. I mean, there's no reason to talk about him anymore. All of his viewers, hopefully they find a home somewhere. Some found a home here. Some found a home in Ronaldo.
He's not had a website. He's not had a website for nearly a year.
Yeah.
So I mean, he shut it down. He shut Loving Life down many moons ago. So what was happening in his own personal life, I don't know. The story that he wasn't South African either, that's also news to me. As far as I understood, he was born and raised here, and then he went to Australia. He claims
he's from Tanganyika. We revealed that in my interview with him on my channel 4 years ago. Yep.
Where's Tanganyika?
Tanganyika is now Tanzania. It was the mainland part was the German colony of Tanganyika. Zanzibar, the Sultanate of Zanzibar, merged with it in the 1960s when they got independence and became Tanzania.
Didn't know that. Sometimes you're a fountain of knowledge. You really got a encyclopedia sitting in your head there sometimes. Who knew?
What do you mean sometimes? I'm always a fountain.
I plead the fifth. I
didn't know that happened. That's that's news. Anyway, yeah. Wow. That's a shame. The guy had 100,000 subscribers. It's how do you blow something like that up? That's crazy.
Yeah, but he took his channel offline like 2-3 years ago. No one really knew why. He just said, it was censorship and he had to move it onto his own private servers. As you know, he did do his own private service. He was trying to do a whole like Loving Life TV thing, which I suppose is what most of alternative media wants to kind of do. I mean, ideally, we'd all love to do that.
Well, I've got somebody that's inquiring about doing that for me, but I would have to have a degree of control over that. I would not take a chance that someone could, just control it. So,
well, I must say that there's a lot of people in your comment section that say they were victims of him. So,
yeah,
like I say, man, I'll say it again. I said it like 20 minutes ago, but I never knew the guy, never met him, never spoke to him. So,
well, speaking of people that have disappeared, I haven't talked to Ramon recently. I haven't seen him in the news either. Maybe that's just a good thing.
So I haven't actually spoken to Ramon either. Actually, I did speak to him like briefly one time this week, but actually I actually haven't heard from him much. So I think he's keeping a little bit of a low profile given what's going on, because he's still within the agricultural ministry, and what's going on there, I don't know.
Yeah, he's still a government employee, and then that's the bottom line. So, yeah. It's anyway, one last comment on that. Jonathan said that YouTube shut down his main channel. They did, and he had alternate channels, and he kept creating new channels, and none of them got more than about 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers, I think. If I could be, I stand to be correct on that, because I would look for his content. And mostly because people were saying he was saying things about me, and I ignored it for a long time until he started the CIA nonsense. People actually believe that horse shit. I tell you what, I wouldn't mind working for the CIA because I use the coin. This Biden inflation's been eating me alive for the past 3 years. Anyway.
Yeah, so Pablo says, I think Ramon's just working together with John and doing well, by the way, Chris. So
I think
that's
so
actually
too.
That's actually incorrect, because from last I heard, John has shut Ramon out of all activities. So
that says a lot about John Steenhuisen.
But no progress had been pursued in order of his official departure from the department. But
wow.
So he was effectively doing to Ramon what they used to accuse the ANC of doing, that is paying somebody to do nothing.
Yeah, well, it says a lot about Steenhuisen. And then on top of that, I see that someone asked about Big Daddy Liberty. I haven't heard anything about him. He's also working in the government now, in the agriculture ministry, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So that was actually a recommendation of Ramon, believe it or not. Ramon recommended him, but he didn't recommend him because of YouTube. He actually recommended him because he's got a good following.
He's also very effective in what he does, and he's done many things in the past.
Yeah, and he's obviously got an experience of interacting with people, but he's also an aspiring farmer himself. So he actually inherited the family farm.
Right.
So he does have actual agricultural experience.
Yep. As
so
do
he's
I.
On the face of it, it's actually he's a good fit because he's a guy with agricultural experience. He's worked for the IRR, he's worked in the public thing, and he's worked in the bureaucracy. So he knows how these things generally tend to work.
And he's also from an ethnic constituency that the DA needs to get support from and grow, Zulu. So
yes, but he's deeply conservative, and how
That's
he'll
true.
do in the one mustn't forget that at one point in time he was actually a DA councillor, or he ran to be a DA councillor. I don't know if he actually got the position.
He didn't serve, but yeah, he ran.
Yeah.
But he did work for the DA at one point as a communications guy. Ronaldo says that John's the biggest disappointment for him. Great speaker, absolutely no backbone to lead. Not just no backbone, but a very, very thin skin. So unfortunate. I did get to interview him briefly once, but anyway.
So Charmaine says Sir Ramon is officially an ANC employee. And you see, what's actually very interesting about that is that in the agricultural ministry, the people who like Ramon the most is actually the ANC employees, because of Ramon's position on nationalism in Russia. So he's actually very well liked by the ANC guys, but not so much by the DA guys. The biggest irony is obviously. So
yeah, no, it is funny because of Ramon's position on monarchy and things like that, he's just being so vilified, It's just because it fits very well with a lot of South Africans' worldviews, you know what I mean?
Very much so. Very much so. Talking of worldviews, so what's the latest now with Cackling Camilla? I know that she apparently conceded defeat to Trump only because they forced her to, and apparently she was actually quite derogatory to him during her commiseration speech.
Well, that wasn't too bad, the commiseration speech, but the reality is that she she talked about working with the Trump transition team, and meanwhile, her senior advisor sent a memo to all the people internal. It's been leaked, in which they said they're going to do everything they can basically to fight and Trump-proof the government so that he can't change policies. So the insurrection is underway inside the government once again. Every single Democratic presidency that's left, Clinton, Obama, and now Biden, has undermined the incoming presidency of the Republican leader. And this just goes on again and again. It was simple, stupid things with Clinton where they ripped the W's off the keyboard because George W. Bush was nicknamed W, so they stole all the W's off the keyboard. They threw away documents. They shredded documents, so there's no continuity of government. The purpose of the transition period is for continuity of government. The people coming in are supposed to be working with existing people in positions, shadowing them, talking to them, being introduced to people, and learning or taking over, and then when the president's sworn in on January 20th, they hit the ground running. But the Democratic administrations have undermined that. The last time, instead of working with the Trump administration, they actively filed lawsuits against him. They also illegally did wiretaps against General Flynn and Carter Page and a host of other government officials in an effort to set up this fake Russia collusion narrative. So the Democrats are truly the evil empire. They are truly the scumbags of the earth. And I say that with no reservation. There's virtually no one in that party that's redeemable.
Well, they're everybody that they accuse Trump of being.
Correct.
Basically.
Just like the media. They're already running around, oh, Trump, the world's uncertain. I'm sorry. Trump ended wars. He destroyed ISIS in 4 months, which is an outgrowth of Obama's naive, idiotic foreign policy, which led to the death of over 1 million people in the Middle East. But he destroyed ISIS in 4 months when Obama dicked around with it for years. 4 months. He ended the conflict in Iraq. He ended the conflict in Afghanistan. He got the Abraham Accords, historic peace accords in the Middle East. So Israel had restored relations with Morocco. It established relations with Sudan for the first time. It established relations with the United Arab Emirates. Peace reigned in the world. He calmed down North Korea's Kim Jong-un, stroked his little ego by meeting with him, so he stopped launching intercontinental ballistic missiles over the Sea of Japan in Japanese airspace, which is an act of war. No longer did it during the only administration in the last 25 years during which Putin has not actively undermined, attacked, and invaded a neighbor was during Trump's 4 years. Under George W. Bush, he invaded Georgia, Azerbaijan, Nagorno-Karabakh, and then Armenia. And top of that, when Obama came in, he invaded the Donbass, he invaded Crimea and annexed the Crimea, where Obama sat around and did nothing. Then Trump comes in, not a single invasion, not a single neighbor in any threat. He leaves, and within 6 weeks, 70,000 Russian troops move to the border for 6 months where they prepare for an invasion while Biden fuels a proxy war. Donald Trump is not the agent of chaos. The Democrats are the agents of chaos. He is the agent of restoration of order, and that's what's going to happen now. He will not solve the Ukraine conflict on day one. He will not solve Gaza on day one. He will, however, bring these idiots to the table and put pressure on them to end this conflict and get NATO, get its ass out of Ukraine because it doesn't belong there.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see what actually happens because Trump very famously said that he could end the war very quickly after taking presidency. So what's your bet? How long is it going to take him to end the war?
Well, he said on day one, but anybody believes that's an idiot. I mean, unless he's running the wars, he can't end on day one. But I think that what will happen is that Israel will go on a surge and hopefully end the war within 90 days from now, maybe 90 days from when Trump takes over. In Ukraine, Zelensky is going to have to be removed. That's the only way that war ends, if Zelensky is gone, or Putin. Putin's not going anywhere. You can't get rid of Putin. But Zelensky is a criminal. He's a grifter. He's a scumbag who needs to be anti-democratic force who needs to be removed from office. And if Zelensky is gone, then the Ukraine will be in a position to negotiate. But right now, he's perfectly comfortable sending Ukrainians to their death and slaughter in the eastern Donbass. That's what he's all about. Yep. So there was a comment here, a question from Charmaine saying, what's up with the two states that won't give Trump the win? He won those two, right? Yeah, the problem, Charmaine, is that Arizona is incredibly slow counting their ballots. You have to understand that these morons came up with a 17-page, or not 17 page, a 17-inch ballot, which is larger than even A1 paper. It's like this long, and it has so many questions on it, and there's 2 pages. You have to have 2 ballots you have to fill out and send in. And they're having a hard time processing these things because they're morons. They shouldn't have so many issues on the ballot. So they're at 71% of the ballots counted now 3 days after the election, and we're still waiting. Trump has a comfortable lead, which is insurmountable in my view, looking at where the votes are still coming in. There were a lot of votes in Cochise County, which is where Fort Huachuca is located in the southeast, a heavily conservative area on the border with Mexico. I used to live there in Sierra Vista, which means beautiful mountain, or mountain view, excuse me. So that place only had 45% of votes counted yesterday, and it was heavily Trump. There's 2 other counties heavily Trump. Now, there are some votes in, I think, Tucson and Pima County that have not been counted that will go for I started to say Biden, for Harris, but it's not enough. He's won, but they're just being stubborn. I understand why they haven't called it just 71% in, but when they get to 90%, they need to call it. In the case of Nevada, this is just spiteful. Trump is on the verge of 300 electoral votes. They don't want to have him have 300 electoral votes. He will have it. So they're wetting their panties, crying, and they've refused, even though 96% of the vote has been counted in Nevada, and he has an insurmountable lead of 5%. Well, it's under 5. It's about 4.8% right now. There's no way that she can catch him in Nevada. So give him those 6 electoral votes. That takes him to 301. If you give him the 11 that comes from Arizona, it takes him to 312. What was Chris Wyatt's prediction for the 2 weeks before the election? 318. Who was right? I was. I shouldn't have gone with New Hampshire. Would have given me 315. So 312, and I said 318. I also said Trump would win the popular vote because he's going to take more votes in California and in New York. And guess what? Trump closed the gap. He gained 12 percentage points in New York, 12 percentage points in New Jersey, and that's why not New Jersey, New York. That is why he won the popular vote.
But your governor of California is still a Democrat, right?
You're talking about gruesome Gavin Newsom? Yes, he's a Democrat.
But I mean, will they keep the governor of that?
Yeah, that doesn't change. This election isn't for some time. It's not in the same cycle.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I want to actually read some news to you that came out today. It was actually
okay.
I don't know if you know this, but it actually came from Putin's speech. So there's only a couple of statements out of this, but Putin, and I'm going to read it, said that Putin said, "I take this opportunity to congratulate Trump." He said a lot of other crap, and then he said, with referencing to Ukraine, he said, "If there is no neutrality, it is difficult to imagine the existence of a good neighborly relationships between Russia and Ukraine. We are determined to create conditions for a long-term settlement so that Ukraine is an independent sovereign state and not an instrument in the hands of third countries and not used in their own interests." Then he says that he talked about how the US is continuing to pump Ukraine full of weapons. And now that Donald Trump is in the office, he said, "I think we'll speak." He says, "I'm ready to speak with the incoming American presidents." And this was from his speech directly. So, well, it's very interesting because Biden didn't actually have any communication with Putin.
And that is what I've said from the outset of this. First off, Biden ignored it for months. And then he never made any effort whatsoever to have a peace discussion. Ever. Not once. And that has been my position on this all along. This is why this is problematic. This is Biden's proxy war. Biden had a war in Ukraine to distract from his failed governance and to cover up his crimes there. That's what it's all about. And he didn't care how many billions of dollars he took from the American people. It's now north of $250 billion pissed down the drain to kill Russians and Ukrainians so that Joe Biden can stay in office. You know, I think that the intent with Biden, honestly, was that they expected him to go 2 years and then they would get drubbed in 2022 by a red wave, and that would be the excuse for him to leave, and he will have been president. It will have satisfied his ego. But when the abortion issue was used to mislead voters in 2022 after Dobbs' decision, and women screaming emotionally about, "Oh, my body, my choice," nothing changed, you dumbasses. Nothing changed, but you're a bunch of emotional lunatics, and they voted for Democrats. So there was no red wave. It was just a red trickle. And when it was a red trickle, Biden felt empowered. Hey, I don't have to go anywhere. I mean, look, I still got the government on. We're going to continue doing what we want to do here. And his mental stability continued to decline, his mental capacity, his physical capacity declined. And the Democrats tried to cover it up, thinking they could get across the finish line because, I mean, after all, Donald Trump is a convicted rapist. Not true. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. Not true. Donald Trump is a criminal. Not true. Donald Trump incited resurrection. Not true. They tried everything in the book. I mean, they tried to kill him. 2 assassination attempts that we're aware of, probably more that were thwarted that we're not aware of, and in most inept Secret Service. I mean, look, these people are as inept as the bodyguards protecting Mark Liffman, the Secret Service. Anyway, I think some of my viewers know who Mark Liffman is.
So I think it's going to be really interesting to see now what actually happens with Trump. I know we on Retard Understand we talked about this the other day. For those of you who haven't watched the chat, please go to the channel Retard Understand and watch the stream I did with Chris. It's actually still on there. Anyway, I watched a very short, brief press announcement today around the Reserve Bank in the United States, and the governor there was asked by the press whether or not he would resign, because apparently Donald Trump has suggested that his now policies are in complete opposition to the Reserve Bank governor's position. And he said no. And he said, can Donald Trump remove you? He said no. And he said, so is there no way to get rid of you? And he said no. And he says, it's not legal. You can't touch me. And I thought it was actually very interesting, because it already appears like there are sections now of the deep state that, as you rightly said, are putting in place plans to attempt to thwart Donald Trump. The problem is that, unlike the last time, so I made this comment to a stream I did with Hugo today, but the problem that that the establishment has now that they didn't have last time is he doesn't need to seek re-election.
Correct.
You always find this in most elections, that the first term is always kind of mild, and then the second term is really balls to the wall, because the first term they don't want to upset the voters so that they don't get in the next time. This is like with all of them. Obama was like this, Bush was like this. We have it in South Africa, the same story. But this is the second term. He can't seek re-election. So it's like, okay, well, screw you, I'll do what I want. The other side is that his margins everywhere are so big, he doesn't really need to seek consensus. So the days of consensus finding to get his things passed, you'll recall in the first time he had to find consensus to build the wall and so forth. Don't need that now, mate. Force through whatever the hell he wants. Do what he wants. Most popular president of all time.
Well, not the most popular president of all time, but arguably, even though the numbers aren't as strong as they percentage-wise they could be, this is arguably the first time a president has had a genuine mandate since Reagan in '84. First time. I mean, Bush didn't get an 88 in 92. Clinton didn't have it. Yeah. He didn't even have a majority, he had a plurality. And then Bush barely won in 2000. He won in 2004, but it wasn't a mandate. Obama, anyway. So this is the first time a president, I mean, he has a mandate. Jews, gays, Christians, Muslims, Arabs voted overwhelmingly in Michigan. That's why he won Michigan, only by 30,000 votes, but because the Arabs voted for Donald Trump, because they hate Kamala Harris because of this regime. Everybody, whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics. He won the majority of Hispanics, men anyway, and he almost won a majority of Hispanics, period. And all these lies about the gender gap, Trump closed the gender gap. He closed the youth gap. He gained more youth votes. He gained votes everywhere. The man is wildly popular despite their efforts to destroy him, because Americans are tired of the woke bullshit. They've woken up. And I tell you what, I already saw it. I saw the order. I already mentioned this. Pennsylvania's governor, Josh Shapiro, issued an order to the Pennsylvania National Guard last night. They're deploying to Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Harrisburg because they have to get the engineers' boats out. The streets are flooded with liberal tears, and they're floating down the streets of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia on their Teslas, holding on for dear life. So they're sending the Pennsylvania National Guard out to save these people from the rivers flooded with liberal tears. There you go.
So let's actually go on to a degree of news that we haven't covered,
sure.
And that is, what do you think is going to happen between the United States and China?
Well,
China.
I think that there's so many fish to fry that Trump has got a pretty busy braai. Oh, that rhymed. I have to do that. So many fish to fry that Trump has a pretty busy braai. Yeah, that's a true statement. What's going to happen with China? China is desperately retrenching now, trying to come up with stimulus packages in anticipation of Trump, and also because their economy is in the crapper right now. So I think that what's going to happen is Trump is going to approach them and say, listen, if you don't take the tariffs off of Cadillacs, we're imposing tariffs. And they're going to be the same level you're doing to us. 75%, you're getting a 75% tariff. And if you don't start moving your manufacturing back to the U.S., American companies that are in China, then you're going to pay for it. And I think that there will be a mini trade war that really won't have major impacts on the world initially. We'll see how it goes. It could be a tit for tat. If it becomes a tit for tat, it could escalate. But I think initially Trump's going to fire a warning shot across the bow. And he should. The Chinese are frauds. They are disgusting protectionist, and intellectual property thieves and copyright violators and trademark thieves. They need to be taught a lesson, and if they want to be in the World Trade Organization, which they are, it's time that somebody stand up to China. And that includes American business, the sycophantic, bootlicking, scumbag American businesses like the National Basketball Association and a host of manufacturers around this country. You're shameful. You're shameful. You sold our nation and liberty down the road for a few cents on the dollar, so screw you.
I think we know where you stand on all this.
I'm pretty clear. China is a threat to global security. It's a nuclear armed nation that's building bases in places that doesn't even own, threatening its neighbors and threatening the most traveled and transited shipping lanes on the planet. The Straits of Malacca and the South China Seas is the most heavily trafficked trade routes on the planet. And the Chinese are claiming with their bullshit 9-dash line that they own land in the Spratlys, the Scarborough Shoal, and the list goes on and on. The Paracel Islands, they don't. The International Court of Justice has determined that their occupation is illegal and told them withdrawal. And they told the ICJ to get screwed. Futsek. China is a dangerous actor. They have tripled the size of their Navy in 30 years, which is a plan that the Chinese Colonel Major came up with back in the 1980s, writing a paper at their war college. And they've done exactly what they said. They now are a Navy superior in size to the United States Navy, and they don't provide the service that our Navy does. Our Navy patrols the Straits of Malacca and the South China Seas to ensure international shipping gets through the lines of communication, and the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Gulf, depending which bent you are from Iran or Saudi Arabia, and South Africa and the Red Sea. We do all that free of charge so that you can get goods and services because no one else will do it. The Chinese have a Navy twice our size. They don't do it because they're building a Navy to attack their neighbors, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia, and Malaysia. And you know what I say to the Chinese? Fuck off.
So Charmaine says, here in South Africa, the taxpayers are getting penalized for China goods. We are getting taxed hella for imports on Temu and Shein, or Shine, depending on who you ask for the pronunciation. But yes, they are. Don't buy cheap Chinese junk. Chinese junk. It's terrible. Buy something else.
Buy Japanese, buy German, buy American. I mean, and for the few things made in South Africa, buy South African. You want shoes? Buy freedom of movement.
Hey, I said quality stuff. Don't buy American junk.
Freedom of movement. Freedom of movement. Freedom of movement. Fantastic company that makes fantastic Feldskona. Good stuff. Get yourself the fellies. Really good stuff.
I said people want to buy quality, dude. Cheese.
That is
they don't
quality.
Want to buy American crap.
I'm not talking about American crap. Yes. I'm talking about South African crap.
I tell them to buy British stuff, but I don't think Britain makes anything. So nothing to buy.
There's nothing left.
I think they still make soap. That's it.
No, seriously, all the manufacturing is pretty much gone. In the UK, mining is gone, manufacturing is gone. The only thing left is prostitution and politics, and grocery stores.
Let's face it, the prostitution in the UK is not really worth your while.
I wouldn't know.
I've heard.
Low IQ says the Chi-Coms are the biggest threat the world faces now. Well, I agree with the sentence. I'm a little concerned about agreeing with someone who goes by the name Low IQ. That's pretty funny. No, but anyway, they are the greatest threat to the world security, world order, world economic progress. And it's the fault of the elites in our societies in South Africa, in the UK, in Germany, in the United States, especially in Canada, and in Japan. Not so much Japan, but by shipping our industrial production to China. Why do we do that? For a few cents of the dollar? A country that uses slave labor, that harvests organs from Muslims, that imprisons them, commits genocide against them. A country who has an ecological disaster. If you go 50 miles inland from the coast, China is 1930s in many cases. It's so underdeveloped, so ignored, so desperately poor. But all the riches come along the 50-mile stretch, 80 kilometers from the coast. And inside there, it's a total disaster. Places like Wuhan may look modern, but it's not. But I will say this, the Chinese have done an amazing job ramping up the resources because they can kill people if they don't do what they're told. And they have achieved great progress in development when it comes to urbanization and also industrialization at a great expense, ecological and human expense. And for decades, they punished people for having too many children. And now they're too old and don't have any children. So that's coming back to bite them in the ass. And the most populous country in the world is no longer China, it's India. And the world's largest democracy is India, which has more problems you can shake a stick at. That's another story.
Yes. So Marilyn says, needs to get manufacturing back to South Africa. SAP. I would 100% agree with you, like almost 10,000% agree with you. But unfortunately, the biggest problem we would have doing that is electricity. So.
Trevor Bush is asking, why you guys hate Russia so much? You must be talking to the chat. Neither one of us has said anything bad or good about Russia. I don't hate Russia.
And if you know anything about Morning Shot, then you'll know that apparently we paid for Russian spies.
Oh, is that what it is?
I know this to be true because it was released in some CIA-sponsored bullshit document. So
yeah. Low IQ. No, you're 100% correct. I was just joking about that, but I agree with you. Trevor, no, I don't hate Russia. I see Russia as a backward, failing country with a collapsing population and serious health issues that only is a factor in the world because they have nuclear weapons and resources. That's it. If it wasn't for nuclear weapons and a host of natural resources, Russia would not be of a concern to anybody on the planet, other than the Chinese who are looking for places to colonize. They've got a bunch of Chinese that need land, and eastern part of Russia is underpopulated and underprotected. And as Russia collapses, the Chinese will just go across the border and start occupying their land at some point.
See, I don't generally actually think that Russia is important because of its nuclear weapons. I think Russia is important because of its not too distant history. The Soviet Union is what made Russia influential, but unfortunately the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. It's a bit like saying Oxford is a really good university because we know who Oxford is from times gone past, but Oxford now is not what Oxford was. It's still trading on its historical position in the world, and I think Russia's very much still doing the same. It's still trading on its historical standing, but that standing's been gone for freaking ages. But you see, the problem is that it's still it's a useful, what Stalin would have called at one point in time, Russia is like a useful idiot, where it's a useful tool to those who want to use some form of Baba Yaga, some form of boogeyman that they can call out whenever they want somebody to point to and go, look, Russia. And unfortunately, I think that's exactly what's happened over the last 4 years. But you see, Trump don't need that. He don't need a boogeyman. He don't need a redirection of attention. So, and Trump is under no illusion as to where Russia sits on the global standing. So, anyway, that's my ramblings. I don't think Russia is important because of nuclear weapons. I think it's important because of where it was historically.
Well, I didn't say Russia is important because of nuclear weapons. I said people pay attention to it because of nuclear weapons. That doesn't make it important.
Same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
I could change everything I say and still say its attention, and it would still stand up. It's still
the one thing you did say, that you said that it's unfortunate the Soviet Union is gone. I disagree on that. I don't know if that's what you meant. It's very fortunate the Soviet Union's gone. It's evil, killed millions of people, shot people in the head.
I'm not a proponent of commies, mate. So
okay.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not a commie lover. You should know that.
No, that's why I said the phrase came out wrong. That's why I wanted to make sure it was corrected. Yeah, no, it's unfortunate for the Russians that the Soviet Union is gone because it gave them great influence. I think that's what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the reality is people only pay attention to Russia because of its historical situation with the Soviet Union. Had it never had the Soviet Union and the power that it once had, nobody would pay attention to it. But
yeah, it would be a backward country now that's largely agricultural and mineral extraction. Nobody would be paying any attention to it. Yep.
No, but it's like, why does the ANC try to cozy up to Russia? Because they're still stupid enough to think that Soviet Union and it was important. Like, there's no Soviet Union there anymore, guys. Like, you can try cozy up all you want, but the Soviet Union is gone.
Why does ANC still cozy up to Cuba, a bankrupt country that can't even keep the lights on? I guess because they share the same thing with ESCOM. They can't keep the lights on. But no, they cozy up to Cuba because they still have these historic relationships. They were inculcated in these countries. But most of those people are gone now. So you would have thought that these ties would have died off, but they haven't. They're still there, which is crazy.
They are dying off because, no, not fast enough. But you see, the problem inevitably becomes, as you well know, a lot of the people that are still pursuing the ties are like 70, 80 years old. They've just been there for a very long time. So they've had long interactions with these countries.
Yep.
But when they go, and the next lot come in, and there will be a next lot, then the question inevitably becomes, well, now what? Because they don't have any historical relationship. And as we've seen with modern politicians, especially even in South Africa, as you'll know, a lot of the relationships are based on parasitical relationships. There needs to be something that there can be as a benefit. Saying, well, these were our apartheid level allies just isn't going to cover it with, the younger politicians. They want something to extract. And when you have places like Cuba that is extractive, well, you're just not going to pay much attention. These are guys asking for handouts. They're not guys that are going to fund you.
Yep. Well, it has been an interesting year, especially the last few weeks, and it'll continue to be as we get to the end of the year. We've go back to May 29th, a very consequential election in South Africa. As I predict the ANC would fall from power, I said 38 to 42%. They came in at 40%, and I made the prediction in November of 2021 and stuck to it. So that was consequential. We see the ANC finally forced into a coalition. And then here in America, we've thrown the bums out in a historic election. In Botswana, I'm not a fan of the umbrella for democratic change, but the Botswana Democratic Party had lost its legitimacy. It became grown fat, lazy, incompetent, entitled, and lost the right to govern. And people punished them in a horrific loss for them. They lost over 30 seats in a 58-seat assembly. It's insane. They're down to just 4 seats left. They were absolutely, utterly destroyed, and they deserved it. And now we have Mozambique, where the party claims that they won, but the people don't believe it, so they're rioting in the streets in Nampula and Maputo and elsewhere. And we have another election coming up in southern Africa, in Namibia, in just a matter of days, where SWAPO is going to lose. It will lose its majority for the first time since 1990 when it took over. We saw this in municipal elections, and I don't know the percentage because the polls are unreliable, and I'm not in Namibia, but I know the sense. I know a few people there. They will lose power, most likely, maybe be forced into coalition. But there's a real possibility that SWAPO could be just destroyed, like we saw the BDP destroyed, particularly after Namibians have seen the BDP, which has been in power since '66, obliterated. A lot of people may just go, you know what, now's the time. I know this because of what happened in municipal elections. SWAPO doesn't even control Windhoek or Luderitz or along the coast there. They don't control any of it. It's all under control of opposition parties.
So the biggest thing is swap. The reason why this might be the right time for Namibians to vote against SWAPO is because of the oil fund. And most Namibians, I mean, I know a few Namibians, but they feel very hopeful about the economic prospects of their country, specifically with the oil fund off the coast. So they know that if that actual fund is used properly, it will send their country into a golden age. But if it's squandered, then they remain a shithole, basically. But they don't want to see it squandered. That's the point. And they know that based on the governing party, it's quite likely to get squandered. So
we have good examples of that. Since independence, they've squandered the uranium money, the diamond money that's come in. It's all been pissed down the drain, and they went in their pockets. So people today are poor, and many more people are poor, living below the $2.60 per day, poverty line that the UN sets, World Bank sets. More people are poor in Namibia today than they were when it was Southwest Africa.
Yes, and so my sense, certainly from the Namibians that I know and I've interacted with, that they are deeply concerned about what a potential SWAPO continuation of policy could lead, seeing as this is like I said, this is their holy grail. And when the fund was announced, it was announced with a big fanfare of economic models of what it could do to the country. And so people feel hopeful. Now, obviously, when they see their neighbors all chucking off, their historical bonds. And remember, it's very easy to forget that right above Namibia, they had Angola, and, Angola changed their government. There's been changes of government everywhere around there. So when you see that with all your neighbors, then you think, maybe we should change our government. It's like everyone else is doing it. It no longer becomes taboo to change from the Liberation Party. That's the key point.
Well, it's interesting because Namibia also has something, that's pretty evident in the minds of everybody about the corruption of SWAPO, with ministers involved and having been charged with criminal acts. That's the fish rot scandal with Iceland. I mean, that whole nonsense there. So there's no reason to trust SWAPO with the oil. And not that I would trust the opposition parties with it, but Namibians are up in arms and they don't trust them with the oil. Absolutely. Now, low IQ says oil in so many cases is a blessing, not a blessing, but a curse. That low IQ is because in most countries, the oil and the minerals under the ground don't belong to the people who own the property. They own the land. They belong to the government, which is bullshit. That is wrong. It should not belong to a government. If it belongs to a government, then it gets stolen and squandered. There are rare exceptions where the money is used wisely, like Kuwait and Norway, where the money's put into genuine national sovereign wealth funds, and it's for a rainy day. But beyond that, most places simply squander it, and people don't profit from it. So it's a real test case for Namibia, but I guarantee you if SWAPO stays in power, they'll squander all the money. Another government, maybe something good will come from it, but it ain't going to come with SWAPO. It's time for these clowns to go.
So here's an interesting point, I suppose, out of all of this, and it's something that we also can't discount, and that is, if there is a change in Namibia, the impact on South Africa will be huge, because don't forget that Namibia's exchange rate is deeply tied to the South African exchange rate.
It's essentially the same currency. The Namibian dollar is linked. Currency. It's tied to the rand, exactly. Yep.
So once that change occurs, you see, historically, the ANC has got on very well with its counterparts in Botswana, Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, because supposedly they were all liberation movements together. Then they all swapped from one country to the other in terms of hiding, and they all knew each other. It's kind of like they were all the same WhatsApp group. But that's no longer the case, because those movements are all changing. So the ANC can't say with SWAPO, like, guys, just go with us because, we're friends, blah, 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 whatever. Now it's a completely new story. So now they have to act in their own national interest. Now, when South Africa does something really dumb, like a good example was when they wanted to table the expropriation without compensation, SWAPO were like, we want to do that. Sounds great. There was no questions of points of economics, was it? They didn't really care. But now when you have a brand new government that has to actually worry about their economy and they have no historical links, when you start doing stupid things that really impact your currency, they're going to have a lot to say. And they can actually apply a lot of pressure on the South African government to not be pricks.
Yep. Now, Pablo Charlie says, but Botswana now has a leftist Pan-Africanist government. Isn't this bad news? Yes, it is bad news. But as I said, the BDP had lost the right to go. Yeah, well, it's left, but they have lost. The BDP lost the right.
But it's center left.
Yeah, it's not radical. But when you host Julius Malema, that raises questions about your reliability. But no, it's not good news. But it's not horrible news. And quite frankly, the BDP needed to be taught a lesson. I argued this since around 2009. They needed to be taught a lesson. They needed to be spanked and removed from government. But I didn't expect them to go from 30-some members of parliament to 4. My expectation was 20, 22, 24 best case, and they'd have to go into coalition. I predicted they would be thrown out, but I didn't predict they'd be destroyed. They've been destroyed. The only place they've retained constituencies is around Gaborone, and they lost to the Botswana Patriotic Front, which Ian Kamba backed, and he retained those constituencies around Sorowe, where the Mangwato people live. He's the traditional chief of the Mangwato, the Mangwato. So they've just been destroyed. And the UDC is everywhere. They're up in the Okavango. They're in the Kalakati district. They're all over the place. It's a total wipeout. So it's time for SWAPO to be wiped out, and this is quite a consequential year. But then it's up to these parties and these people to govern properly. Look, Trump has won, but it ain't over. I'm going to hold him to account. I mean, unless he offers me a job in administration, then I'll have to go along with the team. But short of that, I'm going to hold him to account. I'm going to hold him to account. I'm going to say, listen, you made this promise. Now it's time to fulfill it. Let's get to it. I still am angry that the wall was never finished. Now, I know it wasn't entirely his fault. There was treason and subterfuge, but he had a Republican majority in the House and Senate his first 2 years, and we didn't get a wall. So finish the damn wall. I don't want to hear about 600 miles. I want to hear about 1,800 miles. That's what I want to hear about.
And maybe you'll get your wish. Hey, I hope you get your wish. It will be amusing. What can I say? But anyway, it's been over an hour now. Should we call the stream there?
Is it an hour? About 59 minutes, isn't it? Yeah, okay, but we can wrap it up here.
Oh, is it 59 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, by the time we finish arguing like an old married couple, it's going to be probably an hour.
Well, look, we'll do this.
Check us out. Charmaine says Ronaldo's live has just started. And
let's-
the prick didn't even invite us on.
Well, I know.
What a wanker.
But I'm going to throw him a bone anyway before we go away. I'm going to do a redirect so that people, can be automatically redirected. I know a lot of people won't go, but we'll do a redirect so you can go to Ronaldo and see what he's got.
You can redirect, and I'm going to tell everybody else to ignore him because he didn't even come on the show and have a little chin wag with us.
Yeah, what was this bullshit about he's not home, but then 20 minutes later he's broadcasting? I call bullshit.
I call bullshit too. So everybody go to his channel and say,
bullshit.
Came from Chris Wyatt's channel. Your channel is bullshit. And then just log off.
All right. He'll probably tell you to slag off. Botswana's economy will not grow. Do you think UDC will achieve making Botswana a banking hub? I have been arguing Botswana should be a banking and a pharmaceutical hub for over 25 years, and they don't listen to me, so they deserve the misery they have. It's an ideal place to do it, but hey, maybe one day they'll wake up, but not soon. Anyway, Byron, it's been a pleasure as always. Let's try to get back doing this more frequently. I've been really swamped by the consulting and the election. That's all behind me now, and I have no money to come to South Africa, so I'm not coming right now.
Yes, we should do it more frequently. Unfortunately, I have not always had the ability to do this because since taking over Morning Shots and making it great again, it's
make Morning Shot great again. That doesn't work. MSS anyway. MSGA. That sounds like a food additive. MSGA makes Morning Shot MMS. Anyway,
so I've had to make Morning Shot great again, and it's been hard work learning to edit and do the videos. And I think I've come a long way. The subscriber numbers have gone up by around 30%. I think before Ramon left, him and I were together at around 55,000. I'm now at like 77,000 subscribers. So take that, Ramon, you chin wagging, DA loving fairy. But
I think the phrase is metrosexual.
Yeah, I don't want to say that. Although, there were many times I went to places with Ramon and they would say, "Oh, is this your boyfriend?" And I'd be like, "Fuck you, man! He's the gay one." Like, it's like, jeez. But yeah. So anyway, it's been a tough learning curve, but I think I've got over that now, and the videos are more frequent. And I had some family issues as well, just like you. So usual stuff, man. So.
No, we got it, though. But hey, Byron, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Folks, we're going to wrap up here, and we'll catch you hopefully over on Rugby Ascendant in a couple of hours for Ireland taking on the All Blacks at Aviva Stadium in Dublin.
Boo! Ireland sucks. Boo!
Shittest
team on the planet.
Anybody that plays New Zealand, but I'm torn because I want the Springboks to be number one. So if New Zealand wins, the Springboks go back to number one. But if Ireland wins, then anyway. So I'll probably root for Ireland.
But I dislike Ireland. Have you actually seen the statistics of the parties that get there into the World Cup, and whoever gets to the semi-finals and then the finals? Ireland's like in every quarterfinals, like ever, but they never make it beyond that. Right, they just choke. Suck.
They choke every time. That's Ireland's history.
So Slippery says Byron will Ramon be back for next year's pandemic. He will not be back for next year's scamdemic. He has no intentions of coming back to Morning Shot. He actually doesn't want to be on social media, or he doesn't want to be on PooTube for some time because of reasons. If you don't know what those reasons are, you weren't reading the headlines. You really weren't. So yes, he is taking a long-term hiatus from putting his mug in front of a camera. Something about going for about 3 months and being called a racist every day of his life. That didn't really gel with him.
It's kind of old. Well, listen, I'm gonna redirect people over to Ronaldo's stream. Poor fellow, the boat only has 30 people watching right now. We have about 100, so we're gonna maybe some will make it over there. All right.
Okay,
Okay.
man. Cool.
All right. Cheers.
Take it easy,
care,
guys.
Byron. Let you drop off there.
Bye.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up here for Braai Brus for today, November 8th, 2024. And thanks for being here. Really appreciate your support for the program. You'll be automatically redirected over to Ronaldo's channel right now if you want to be there. And then don't forget on Rugby Ascendant at 9 p.m., I think it is South Africa time. No, 10 o'clock. Wait. That's 3, so 7. Yeah, 10 o'clock South Africa time is going to be on. But you can check it out on Rugby Ascendant, Ireland versus New Zealand. I'll be doing play-by-play and color commentary on that. All right? Catch you guys later. Thanks for being here. God bless. It's always a pleasure. And thanks to my co-host, Byron. It was a lot of fun, as always. Cheers, folks.